Hey, chaps. Oh, sorry, I'm still giggling. I just got accused of cheating by this pussy. He got beaten, and it's a funny exchange. Anyway, I won't sport with your intelligence. I'm going to share two games. I've just played two Blitz games, and they both featured the same defense by black, and I'm going to show you my approach to that, which is against the French defense called the King's Indian attack. And I don't know if I've made a video on this yet, but it's really quite cool. So let me show you how it goes. So obviously, I was a French player for quite some time, and so I know kind of how it works. I know the usual ideas, and I was kind of struggling and scratching around trying to find an original way to respond to the French, which is 1 e6 from black. And I was looking, for example, at the wing gambit and stuff like that, but then I came across a video that proposed this. This is called the King's Indian attack against the French defense. So in the King's Indian, very often you'll fianchetto your bishop, bring your knight out, and so on. But French players just don't like this. Now, so this is the first of two games. I'll take you through both games. My opponent throws out his dark squared bishop. So he's already out of French territory, because normally you leave your dark squared bishop there, hoping that your opponent's going to play d4 and then capture on c5, and then you develop your bishop, right? So I bring my knight out to d2, and for some reason he decides to sack his bishop on f2, I retake. So I'm already up a minor piece for a pawn, and what's more, I've got a light squared pawn structure and he's only got a light squared bishop left, so it's not great. Queen comes out with check. What do we want to do? Right? This is thought process 101. We've got an immediate problem. Our immediate problem is that we're in check, therefore you have to get out of check legally. And there are a few ways of doing it. I could move the king, which isn't maybe fantastic. I can block on this square with 3 different pieces. So I figure, look, I'm up material already. I'm going to propose the trade of queens, and if he wants to accept the trade, I get to develop my other knight for free. I've now got 2 pieces developed to 0, and I'm a piece up. What's not to like? He plays queen h4, and I just push g3 to kick the queen. I'm not worried about my pawn structure here. I just want to press, press, press. Queen retreats again, so now my opponent has played 3 queen moves in his first 6 moves. I play b2 now, because I'm figuring my knight's in the way of this bishop already, and I kind of like the look of this. There's an undefended pawn. So he responds by blocking with his knight. I fianchetto my bishop anyway, and he pushes e5. So now I'm attacking this once. It's defended only by the queen. My light squared bishop isn't great, but it could maybe come to here. That's not a bad diagonal. Here, I've got my own light squared wall in the way. I put my bishop on e2 anyway, thinking maybe I want to get my king, back on the back rank. I don't know. d6 is played. I put my king on e1. He comes after my queen. I'm unconcerned. Just drop back. And he trades off. Why? I don't know. We'd have to ask him. Knight comes in attacking the queen, and I just slide forwards. I'm not worried about this hitting the queen because it's defended. And his knight is undefended, so he's going to have to do something. Either move his queen or push a pawn. So he pushes h5. I hit the knight. Knight has to retreat. Now I'm going to reroute my knight round maybe to here, because he's got dark squared pawn structure, so these squares are looking kind of juicy, right? Remember, this is a 5-minute blitz game, so we're not going super, super deep into it. He develops his other knight. I do bring my knight to e3. Looking at here, might trade off knights. Either way, I'm hitting the queen. But now he castles long, which was a bit of a surprise. But he's already moved his h-pawn, so maybe not. And this really does come down to time, this game. So, knight comes in here. You have to spot the threat. The threat is this pawn, which is undefended. It's a backwards pawn. It's behind the chain. So I need to do something about that. There's a few things I could do. Knight to here defends. Moving this knight anywhere creates a discovered defense by the queen. I could even move my rook across to defend. In the end, I decided to play king d2. The reason is I also want to guard this square, because currently this knight is defending this square, and if he gets to go into c2, that's a fork on king and rook. We don't want that. So king d2 also reconnects the rooks. He pushes his c pawn to, I guess, to prevent my knight from coming in there. I could still go in there if I want, but I'd just kick him again. Kick the horse. Horse retreats. He's only got one square to go back to. I play rook a to c1, lining it up with the king. It's just basic principles. He now improves his knight to there, and I lift my rook to defend this pawn and this pawn, because well, the king's defending this one. There's nothing defending this one. Now, if I'd pushed this pawn, then that would have let him come into here again with a fork on king and rook. So I'm just making a pragmatic decision. Just stop him. He pushes a pawn now. And here we're in an interesting position because there is a threat. The threat is d4 with a fork on knight and rook. So what do? I take. And I take with the pawn that's on the c-file. Why? Because his king's on the c-file and I want to clear the way to that king. He takes again, and now I push, right? Because his knight is now pinned. Because of this move, because of this capture, his knight's now in front of the king. His knight is pinned, right? So we attack the pinned piece, ideally with a piece of lower value, preferably with a pawn. So the knight is going to fall. Now, this is now not available, because if he pushes this pawn, I can just take with check, and he's not going to trade his queen off, and then my knight runs away. So this is fine. King moves out of the pin. So now what do? There's a few moves. I've got knight here. I can hit the queen with a fork on the g7 pawn. I can just capture the rook. Sorry, capture the knight with my rook. He pushes there. I come in here. Now this might have been a better move, I don't know. But here I'm just trying to promote trading off, because I've actually got 1, 2, 3 defenders on there. He's got 1, 2, 3 attackers. So we have takes with a rook, takes. And now we're just simplifying because I'm +5 right now. Easy. He pushes a pawn. Now I'm now down to 1 minute 46. So I've got a huge advantage. I've got 2 minor pieces that he hasn't got. I'm a pawn down. So he pushes pawn. I capture this because its only defender is pinned on the queen. Can't recapture. Right? He's not playing very well, it has to be said. Knight comes in, trying to create pressure. Queen moves. I grab a free pawn. Try and trade off rooks. He's not interested. He throws this in, but that's not brilliant because it just walks into bishop. So he has to defend his rook. Queen drops back. I trade off rooks. Now I'm down to 56 seconds. So I drop my knight in there with check. He has to come back to here. Now I don't know if I was clinical at the end here. I still had options. I could have come back here with check, and then he'd have to move his king back. I wasn't quite clear what to do. So I decided just to push my pawn up to d6, lock the knight in there, shut down the position. Queen comes in. I'm on 39 seconds now. There were probably much cleaner ways to finish this game. I decided to just trade off. That's defended. Knight defends queen. I'm attacking his queen. He doesn't want to trade queens, obviously. And now knight a6 again takes advantage of the pinned pawn. So he's in check. Something must be done. He comes to here. Now, the knight is now hanging. So I think I throw in a check with queen c5, threatening to come in here. He comes in there. Now I think probably what I should have done is just this. Yep. And trade off queens, right? Trade off queens. I'm down to 21 seconds. He's on 50. Now I save my knight. Now I move my king up. Why didn't I just move there with check? I'm not sure. He hits the knight, and we have some messing about. But now I can just make moves pretty quickly, as long as they're not complete blunders, and as long as I don't allow this pawn to get past, right, with stupid pre-moves, then we'll be safe. I'm on 13 seconds, but I've got lots and lots of options. I know that this structure is safe. The king can never take either piece, so I can just leave those alone. I'm just waiting for this pawn to step forward so I can remove it and hopefully win on the clock. I just move my knight around now. All this is absolutely safe. And he's down to 5 seconds, he's down to 2 seconds, and he loses on time. All right. But really, really dominant position. Now, game number 2 was similar, and this is the one where my opponent rated 14-11 in Blitz, spat his dummy out, and accused me of cheating. So e4, e6 again, d3, and now my opponent thinks for only 0.8 seconds, throws in d5 anyway, which is what a French player wants to do on the second move. And now we've got a bit of a decision to make. So I decide to push e5. So I'm kind of worried that we might get into a French advanced position, which isn't what I wanted to do. But e5 at least prevents the knight from coming here. And it kind of clamps down. So he plays c5 anyway. I now play f4 because I'm not worried about this. I calculated. This is fine. It's not like there's a pawn hanging there. If the queen comes in here, I've got g3. And the queen has to retreat with tempo. So that's all fine. He develops a knight. I play knight f3. He has to bring his other knight out, so the only real good square is e7. Knight to here is also maybe playable. You can get to that way, but this is just another route to the same place. I develop my bishop. I want a castle. Get my rook onto f1. Now he comes into f5. It's a good square. I just castle now. I mean, g4 is also an option. You know, in Blitz mode, we're thinking about just applying the pressure. He pushes the pawn. Now, I can advance to here and solidify my pawns on the dark squares. That is what I decide to do, because it's defended twice. It's actually attacked by both knights, but it's defended by knight and queen, so I'm okay. Queen now comes down. I just push c3, just finish this dark squared pawn chain. Make a note to self. Don't move the dark squared bishop in a hurry, because queen can take on b2. We don't want that. He develops his bishop. He's getting ready to castle. I now move my queen to c2. I don't know if this was the best move, but it just kind of felt right. Because at some point I could always kick this knight away, maybe slide my queen in here, but it's another defender of that pawn, and it just felt kind of appropriate. I'm moving quite quickly here, 4 minutes 21. He's on 3:38. Now I play g4. Knight moves. I take, he takes, and now look at this situation, right? My rook is guarding these two squares. This pawn is guarding this square. So now I can play g5, and the bishop actually has nowhere to go. Okay. At this point, he seems to get desperate, maybe. He sacks his knight for 2 pawns. I can just step out of the way with my king. Didn't even think about that. But I didn't see that there was a real checkmate threat. I've got a rook that's guarding some good squares. I've got a light squared bishop guarding squares. My other bishop might come in. I think I'm okay here. My opponent has just sacked a whole knight. And now, so I play queen to c3. Why? Because my bishop's in the way of guarding all of this on the second rank. And I figure a trade of queens here is no bad thing for me. He doesn't want it, so he plays queen back to c5. Obvious move here, I want to develop. Bishop e3 hits the queen again. He can't push the pawn because I just take it and repeat the same threat. He retreats. So I play knight to d2, developing my final piece and connecting my rooks. Now, one idea I had for trying to take out his bishop was to move my king to here. But I did realise that there was a danger. At this point, I spotted it. Now, this move is actually a blunder. Can you see why it's a blunder? For the reason I'm about to explain. This move is a blunder because as soon as his queen moved to c6, he now has a threat, right, of a discovered check by moving the pawn to d4 and would win my queen outright. My queen can't block the check. I'm done for. Right? So at this point, actually, I think the computer said that because of this, it's actually even, bizarrely, even though he had this option, but he missed it. He plays his bishop to there, and now I kind of see it, but I'm also thinking maybe I can take this bishop with my knight, but I do now spot this threat. Now I spotted it a move too late. He moves his queen out of the way, leaving his bishop on that light square diagonal. And now I decide to put my bishop here to stop the advance of d5. I really don't want that. It's too much of a threat. I'd like to get my king onto a dark square. So he pushes a5, I grab the bishop. So now I'm up 2 pieces for a couple of pawns. He hits my queen, I come over the other side, trade, and now I recapture with the queen. I do not want to recapture with this bishop because I absolutely want to keep this pawn stuck where it is and keep this bishop stuck behind it. He hits my queen, I just slide back. Just kind of general coordinating move, defend that bishop, which are both otherwise not defended, so why not? He pushes a rook, and now I decide let's simplify. Trades, which he shouldn't be doing at this point. When you're 5-point materials down, don't go trading, right? And then don't go accusing your opponent of cheating because you've played badly. He offers another rook. Thank you very much. I will take that gladly. There is a hanging pawn here. But also I'd like to get my king to safety as well. So king g1, get it on the dark square, so it's ghosted from this bishop. He wants to trade bishops, so I'll accept that gladly as well. Thank you very much. Just advance my king, just get it to relative safety. I can't see any way now that this queen is going to bother my king, because I've just got the coverage around my king is just too good right now. My queen's got all the key squares are all absolutely fine, it's all covered. So I'm good. And at this point he's saying why cheat and offering a draw and blah blah blah. And I said I'm beating you. He said you are reported. I said haha, I never cheat, I'm a YouTuber. So I decline the draw. He says cheater 100%. You're a bad loser, that's all. Do the analysis. He keeps offering draws. Draw, cheater. I don't cheat, bro. Anyway, it's not very illuminating. So anyway, a few more moves are played, and then eventually he runs out of time as well. But interesting way to start a game against the French. If you're looking for something original and unusual, while we're here, we'll pull up the Lichess Explorer and we'll look at the stats on that. So I'll set it to 1600 up to 22 Blitz and Rapid. And from the French, from the white perspective, e4, e6. d4 has been played 9.2 million times. It's been played loads. Knight to f3 has been played. f4 has been played. That's an interesting one. And knight to c3, blah, blah, blah. Where's d3? d3 is in 5th. It's been played 500,000 times. And it actually scores pretty high for white with 49%. c4, the wing gambit, or actually that kind of walks into the orthoschnap gambit, doesn't it? I think with the wing gambit you play this. I think you do. There. This is the wing gambit. And then the idea is that you're going to hit with c4. Now this one, I think this is the Steiner variation, but when you do this, you take, and then ignore, and you play queen to here. I think that, yeah, this is the orthoschnap gambit. Jonathan Schrantz is your guy for that one. It's really, really kind of weird. But anyway, the point is with this, d3 is quite unusual. fifth most common response, not very common at all. And white has a very solid game. If I look at all the numbers on this, black never gets up to 47. 46 is the highest. So white generally has a strong game on this. You can play queen e2 next. You can play your knight to here. It all looks a bit weird and cramped, but basically you're kind of building up to a big kingside attack. And your opponent, particularly in Blitz, is going to spend some time thinking what the heck is going on. So let's look at the chess.com Explorer. I just want to check my stats on this opening as well. There are a few videos out about it. I think Naroditsky has one. Okay, so first we change to my games, and now d3. So d3, yeah, I've played 8 games. I've won 6 of them. So it's actually my highest scoring, very low numbers, but my highest scoring response to there. Knight f3, I haven't done very well, and d4, 51%. So yeah, this is good. So yeah, the c4 idea, I've done okay. 30 games, I've won 60%. That's not bad. But this one, I've won 3/4 of the game. So there you go. So if you're looking for something, check out the King's Indian attack against the French. It might just suit you. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you later.